By now, we know that Season 3 will be the grand finale of the Bad Batch. Overall, it's been a bumpy ride, but an enjoyable one nonetheless. LEGO has unfortunately only released 2 real sets based off the show, and only one that features the entire original squad. So, with the premiere out now, I thought it was time to look at exactly that set, 3 years after its release, to see how it holds up, the Bad Batch Attack Shuttle. Of course, at the time of writing this video, Season 3 of the Bad Batch will not have premiered yet, but seeing as the set is based off Season 1, I think we'll be fine. There was actually quite a bit of buzz around the reveal of the set, since it was leaked before the release of the Bad Batch Season 1, which is why it spoiled Crosshair turning evil. Disney was very mad about that, but that doesn't matter now. Just remember to subscribe, because I'll be sad if you don't. To return to the actual set though, the Bad Batch Attack Shuttle released on August 1st, 2021, less than 3 months after the premiere of Season 1. The total piece count came out at 969 pieces, which is quite a bit to be fair, and justifies the retail price of $100 US, 100 euros or 90 Great British pounds. Now, while I will talk about all of the builds including the set later on, I think we have to start with the reason most people got this set, the minifigures. In total, this set comes with 6 minifigures, or 5 depending on how you count. I mentioned previously that this is the only set featuring the whole original squad consisting of Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, Echo and Crosshair. Omega actually didn't come out until a year later in 2022, so we'll take a look at her when we do a Bad Batch minifigure showcase. One member of the original squad isn't totally fitting in though, and that is the one I want to look at first, Crosshair. Crosshair is the only member of the Bad Batch, and there's no Clone Wars version of his figure. The armor he sports here is the one he gets at the end of episode 1. While I think this figure looks really cool and kind of reminds me of the Death Trooper, the color's just wrong. The visor being green works, all other accents work, but his armor just isn't black. It's a dark blue, sand blue kinda mix, so the black just ain't doing it. Also, when we're talking about this figure's problems, I want to get to the second big one, the back. We are so very clearly missing a backpack. All the Bad Batch members wear one in the show, and here only Tag has a proper one. I think that is a huge miss and makes them look way more like normal troopers. Transitioning to the positives now though, all the detailing is great. There's some wonderful toe and hip printing surrounding the very nice legs, and the silver belt buckle breaks up the color monotony well. The belt does in fact continue into the bag where we have a backpack, but only a printed one, and that just doesn't cut it. Another big thing people fought over were the helmets. I personally think this works fine, but I see why people are upset over them. None of the Bad Batch wear normal helmets in universe, but here only Tech got a new mold. Outside of that though, I love all the green, and below the helmet we even have his face with a signature tattoo. No hair sadly, unlike our next figure, the leader of Task Force 99, Hunter. Now, there's a lot of positive things to say about this figure, but also a few issues, mainly the one I mentioned earlier. We have the same basic helmet here, even though Hunter wears a different one, and we're also missing another backpack. On a positive note though, I love the gunmetal grey that he decided on using as this figure's base color, especially in combination with the dark red. This is easily one of LEGO's best colors. Similarly to Crosshair, we have toe and hip printing that transitions to the more silvery print and breaks up the color scheme a little more. Again, there's also a printed backpack, which I just don't care for, but the helmet looks rather pretty with the half grey face. Taking off the helmet, we reveal Hunter's tattooed face along with his headband. Add the hair to that and you have a great head. Speaking of which, our next figure doesn't even need hair. Wrecker is probably one of the more famous Bad Batch characters, and while this figure doesn't come without flaws, it's still a great figure in my opinion. He uses the same legs as Hunter and even the same torso, of which we don't see too much though due to his new chest piece. Nowadays we have seen this mold be used in a number of different sets on different figures like Paz Vizsla or the Dark Troopers, but this was actually the set to introduce that piece. It really fits Wrecker's much broader chest and even incorporates some detail onto the shoulders. Here especially though, I don't understand why they didn't include a backpack. It'd have been so much easier to slap onto the back, but they just decided not to. It still looks fine since the piece draws off the attention, but it would have been nice to have. Now, the helmet is what I'm split on. Wrecker's helmet doesn't look like a clone helmet at all, but also not really like this. It works for me, but I get people complaining about it. I appreciate all the details though, and below it we have a really good, even if a little faded head. No idea why it's faded, but oh well, still looks great. Speaking of great though, time to look at this set's best figure, Tech. When looking at this figure, it becomes obvious immediately that this was the designer's favorite. Not only does he have a new helmet mold, he's also the only figure with a backpack. But we'll get to that. Most important thing to start with. His base color isn't gunmetal grey, but rather light bluish grey, which matches his in-universe counterpart. We have fully printed legs with printed hips that transition these straps onto the torso beautifully. The combo of light grey, dark red and brown looks great, and the belt even continues onto the back, which you can't even probably see though since it's covered by the backpack. There's a printed tile and I think it looks great for what it is, so let's get onto the helmet. In my opinion, it looks fantastic. It's dual molded and there's just so much about it I love. The red stripe, the visor, the details on the earpiece. The only problem I have is the size. The helmet is way too big and reminds me of the current Stormtrooper helmets. Below it though, we have a nice face with printed glasses that can be combined with the hair and looks really good. For last remember now though, let's get to Echo. Let's get the obvious out of the way, we're missing another backpack and Lego's back with the regular helmet. Now that that is out of the way, I just have to say I'm split on this figure. The first thing that bothers me is the printed karma. Usually I have no problem with it, especially because the leg print is really good, but something here bothers me about it. I do really love the torso though, with a darker stomach part and the little skull in his chest. Another highlight is his right arm, on which there's some printing to show its cybernetic replacement. Here though, I would have liked for the hand to be something even more different than just a grey one. Maybe a Scormling would have been cool, but that's just an idea. I like the helmet personally, and I'm especially a big fan of the hat underneath being light nougat, since Echo, due to his time in Separatist imprisonment, has become a lot paler. The printed cybernetic parts are also quite nice, if I might add. Now though, it's time to get to our last figure, the Gonk droid. Gonk. Now, the build here actually consists of 3 parts, an Imperial Speeder, a Civilian Speeder, and the actual Marauder itself. That is a lot of side pieces that, in my opinion, make the set a bit more fun for kids, but do chip away at the quality of the main model. The Marauder itself isn't actually all that big. It very much reminds me of the Imperial Shuttle from 2021, which I'm rather critical of. Check out the video in the info box to know why. In terms of hard numbers, and its landing position, it measures 13 cm in width, 20 cm in height, and 25 cm in length. I haven't measured it in its flight mode since that would just be a real hassle, but I think it gets the message across. So let's start with the main thing a lot of people have complained about with the set, that being its color. It uses a mix of sand blue and dark bluish grey, while the in-universe model looks a lot darker. At least we thought so after its appearance in the Clone Wars, but after seeing it in the Bad Batch, it is clearly sand blue with some grey parts, so this is a perfect match for that look. Nonetheless, there are still many flaws on this build, but we'll get to those one by one. Let's start with the wings. They are identical, the same pattern repeats on both, and even though I think it should have been less sturdy, I rather enjoy the overall building style. They are quite thin, but move pretty easily and stay in place, so you don't have to worry about them just flailing around when you pick it up. Getting it into its flying position is rather easy, and it's also fairly sturdy, so making it fly around is fun and works very well. Knowing where to grab onto though is a whole nother thing. You can't actually grab onto the fin on the back, unlike with the Imperial Shuttle, since it instantly opens the interior. It doesn't just reveal the interior of the body, but also the cockpit. As you can see, there isn't a whole lot of space in here, barely enough for 2 minifigs. To be fair, there's a little compartment for weapons here that is rather cool, and back here we also have 2 sticked pieces to add some more detail. We are missing any beds though, and even Omega's room with the cannon seat is missing. Technically, that part does exist on the back, but obviously in microscale, along with the engines that honestly look really cool with the stickered pieces above and below them. The fin on top isn't actually all that bad, and they tried their best to copy the pattern from one onto the other side, so hats off for that. One incredibly stupid thing the fin is responsible for though is when you want to open the cockpit, it only moves this far. Due to the part on top being relatively long and low, the cockpit clashed with it and only allows for you to open the cockpit a little. There's no way you're getting figures in there properly like this, so you'll have to pull open the whole top again, only to fit the minifigs in. There's enough space for 2 of them in here, and honestly I'm a fan of the beige seat color. In front here we have a little printed control panel, which is nice, but you definitely need to know that because of his backpack, Tech can't sit in here and neither can Wrecker. They can sit in the back, but there's no accommodation for extra accessories that might hinder sitting in these tight areas. Definitely an oversight, but at the very least you can close the cockpit without any obvious gaps creating themselves. The windshield piece is a printed part that looks really cool, no transparent parts anywhere, but it is what it is, and honestly it's the least of my problems. I quite enjoy the shape of the cockpit. I think they managed to capture that look perfectly, which only leaves us with the underside of the ship. Sadly, there's no landing gear whatsoever, but at least we have 2 spring-fire missiles that go off way too easily though when you're trying to grab the ship, which you can't do by the fin as previously mentioned. The first of the 2 smaller parts the set comes with is this Imperial Speeder, and honestly I don't know what to say about it. It's incredibly similar to the 501st Speeder from the 2020 Battle Pack. I think it looks okay. It's way too big obviously, but the grey and black color scheme is at least something new. The 2 statues in the front though are incredibly off-throwing, with the red introducing another color that just doesn't belong in here, but outside of that it's just a meh speeder. The other one though is a lot more interesting, using a more outlandish design and a bright lime, which I quite like. I think the front looks pretty cool, using some sticker details, and even though I don't know what these things to either sides are supposed to be, they are still cool. Honestly, just a way better speeder than the first one, and also the last thing I had to talk about in this part of the video, so let's get into the final verdict now. So this set is a lot of fun, but far from perfect. I honestly think, as nice as the speeders might be, they should not have been included and the parts should have been used in the Marauder. The interior is lacking and the whole fin mechanism could have been built better if they had more resources. On the other hand though, the figures are very good, there are problems but nothing that is a deal breaker, and the price is also fair. So all in all, I might give this set a 65% rating. Could have been better, but it's still enjoyable. Now though, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, goodbye.